Hello and welcome to The Drive. My name is Emma and I'll be your guide for this scenic drive on the Jæren Tourist Road. We begin outside the Solar Strand Hotel, which is a listed historic hotel just outside Stavanger. This drive we started at very early in the morning, around 9 a.m, and this was recorded in September 2020. You can see the sun is just starting to come out, but I do promise it becomes a very beautiful sunny day later on. Throughout this drive, I'll be talking a little bit about what we are passing and the region in general. You'll see it on the screen in these orange text boxes, like what's appearing now, but I'll also say some of it out loud. Additionally, there will be some blue text boxes on the screen, which just provides my own commentary throughout the drive. I will speak occasionally, but when I am not speaking, I will put on some nice music for you. If you're looking for further information on visiting Jæren, I've got lots of links, including to my blog I Love Bergen, in the description. We are now making our way towards our first stop, called Domsteinene. To our left-hand side, you can see Stavanger Airport, which is called Sola. Sola is the name of the municipality, and it's also the name of the beach we see to the right-hand side. Sola itself is a very old name, and it is mentioned in all of the Old Norse sagas. Now, Stavanger Airport has direct flights to Bergen and Oslo, plus some other Norwegian cities. There's also some flights to European destinations. To the right-hand side, you can see some German fortifications. I will be talking about World War II a lot on this coastal drive because there are a lot of fortifications left over from the war here. Norway was occupied by Nazi Germany from April 1940 to May 1945. During that time, Norway was the most fortified country in Europe. The Germans feared an Allied invasion by sea, so constructed an Atlantic wall along the western coast of Norway. This coastal region was also heavily fortified. We'll see more of that later. We're just about to arrive at our first stop, which is called Domsteinene. We are now arriving at Domsteinene, which is the first stop. It is this sort of answer to Stonehenge in Norway. No one really knows what it means. These kinds of stone circles are uncommon in Norway, as well as Scandinavia. They can date back to the Iron Age, which is 500 BC to 500 AD. Generally, stone circles like this were used as sacred places, and other ones in Scandinavia were also grave sites. This one, however, was not a grave site, but it is suggested that rituals took place here during the Viking Age. It is really easy to find on Google Maps, and I do recommend just taking a quick 2-minute stop to see this one. Now we're on our way to Hellestø Beach, which is a short drive away. Coming up shortly on the right-hand side, we are going to see another piece of Norway's World War II history. This is Ølberg Camp. It is a disused military camp that was used to store ammunition. It's just in this pine forest to the right-hand side. Basically, the German forces were using Sola Airport, and they wanted to keep their ammunition far away from the airport. Because of that, they built Ølberg Camp. It has been disused since 2007, but it is listed for protection, so they can't just tear it down. We're now arriving in the village of Ølberg, so this is a tiny little community, and you should start to see now how the landscape is going to change quite a bit. Orre Beach is down to our right-hand side. When we did this drive, we didn't stop at every single beach on the way because it would take hours and hours. In total, it took us about 3 hours to get from Stavanger to Egersund with all of our stops, whereas normally, if you were to do it without stopping, it would take a little over an hour. So if you do decide to visit Orre Beach, there are actually some remains of Russian cabins on the beach because during World War II, Russian prisoners of war were forced to stay there, and during the day they would build the fortifications along the shoreline. Anyway, as we make our way towards Hellestø Beach, let me tell you a little bit more about Jæren, and you will see the orange text boxes summarizing what I'm saying. So Jæren is a traditional district in Rogaland County, and it's really famous for its landscape. Jæren is actually the largest flat lowland area in Norway. The Old Norse form of the name means edge or brim, and this refers to the coastline. Unlike most of the Norwegian coast, there are very few offshore islands and very few fjords cutting into the shore. Jæren became ice-free early, and so there was very early settlement here. There are many finds from the Stone Age as well as the Bronze Age, but there are very rich finds from the Iron Age and the Viking Age. During World War II, Jæren was fortified by occupying German forces. Hitler teeth were placed along the coast and the beaches were mined. Today you can still see many of these remains, and we will see the Hitler teeth a little bit later. Today, Jæren is known as one of the best agricultural areas in Norway, with pigs, cows, chickens and sheep farmed here. The reason is because the area has a long crop period and varied and well-developed livestock production. Industry in all of these villages is strongly connected to agriculture. So we are now approaching the first beach on our drive. This is Hellestø Beach. So one of the biggest reasons to do the Jæren Tourist Road is to see the beaches. There are beaches all over Norway, of course, but nowhere else than Jæren do they look like white sandy beaches you might see in the Mediterranean. Sure, once you're in the water, you do get a reminder that you are far north in a very cold country, but other than that, it feels nice to picture yourself somewhere tropical. In summer, these beaches do get swimmable, so you can visit here in the summer and go for a nice little swim. Here is Hellestø Beach. These are also very popular surf beaches, which I'll talk more about at the next beach. Anyway, this is Hellestø Beach. So now we are going to make our way to our next stop, which is Orre Beach. It is not too far away. I will be a little bit quiet for the next few minutes and just enjoy this beautiful drive as the sun is starting to come out. Passing us on the left-hand side is one of the museums you can visit on the Jæren coast. This is called the TS Museum. It has a unique collection of old tractors, cars, motorbikes and trucks. In total, there are over 180 vehicles and all of them are still operating. Visitor information can be found at their website, which I've provided a link to in the description. We will see lots of apartment buildings on our drive, and that may seem a little strange considering we are in the countryside. However, Jæren is currently undergoing a population boom due to its modern and fast connections to Stavanger and Sandnes. Many Norwegians are trading in the big city living for rural bliss, and Jæren provides that and then some. I mean, come on, all the beaches. Still, you can easily commute to the cities for work. However, because Jæren is such an important agricultural area for Norway, people do not wish to build on the land, and when you can't expand outwards, the best alternative is to expand upwards. So because of that, you'll see most of the modern buildings are actually apartment buildings. So we are now approaching the Klepp municipality. The earliest traces of population in the municipality have been dated to around 6000 BC. At that time, the land was covered by large oak woods. There is a large stone cross standing on a grave hill called Varhaug. It dates from around 1000 AD and it is possibly the oldest one in Norway. It is adjacent to a site called Tinghaug, which was the site for the local ting or parliament for many centuries during the Iron Age. Tinghaug probably acted as a site for the local court and assembly for many centuries. There are other burial mounds scattered across the municipality. Klepp has around 1/6 of all the Bronze Age finds in Norway. Tinghaug is located close to the Klepp village. We do not pass it on this drive, but it is very close, so you can go there on your own. It's believed that Klepp was an important place during the Viking Age. One reason is that the shoreline here was the shortest distance to Scotland on the other side of the North Sea. Klepp is the second largest agricultural municipality in Rogaland, with a total of around 600 farms. The Kvassheim Group, which is located here, is the largest manufacturer of agricultural equipment in the world. Tina, Norway's leading dairy company, has a facility here as well. The College of Agriculture and Rural Industries is also located in Klepp. So coming up shortly on our left-hand side is the Bora Church, a very old church first mentioned in history in 1322. You can just see it behind the trees now on the left-hand side. So when it was first mentioned in 1322, it was not newly built at that time, indicating it is much older. It's likely that it was actually built as a stave church around the end of the 12th century. Only the baptismal font is preserved from the original church. The stave church was torn down to be rebuilt. It was then rebuilt again at the end of the 19th century and moved closer to the village. Today the old Bora church is still in service. So we are now getting closer to our next stop, which is Orre Beach, and let me talk to you a little bit about surfing. So I know Norway isn't exactly a surfing destination like Hawaii, for example, but over the last few years, pictures and videos of surfers in the far north have been becoming quite popular on the internet. Typically you see the Lofoten Islands, which is in the far north. However, here in southern Norway, surfing is taken very seriously, and you can actually see some surfers over to the left-hand side getting ready to go out. In 2017, Jæren hosted Eurosurf, which is the European Championship for surfing. The coast here is described as the epicenter of surfing in Norway, and it is also the most commercialized surfing spot in the country. You can pick up surfing equipment at the petrol station, so surfing here is really big. Orre Beach is a really popular swimming beach, and there's also a surf school located here. Let's go visit Orre Beach. We are going to continue our drive now towards the Orre Old Church. It is a little bit of a drive to get there, so I'm going to put on some nice music and you can enjoy the scenery. Hello once again, I hope you're enjoying this beautiful drive on the Jæren Scenic Road. Very shortly we're going to be passing the turn-off to the Orre Beach. We didn't stop here on our drive because again it would have just taken us too long, but the Orre Beach is a really famous one and a good one to stop at because it is actually the longest beach in Norway. It's 5 kilometers or 3 miles long and it's famous for its white sandy beaches and good swimming and surfing conditions. It is also often mentioned among the best beaches in the world when it comes to its efforts to maintain a clean and preserved environment. So that's the Orre Beach if you want to stop there on your own drive. Close to the beach is a facility called the Friluftshuset. This building has an information centre about outdoor life and nature conservation. There's also a cultural centre with concerts and art exhibitions. Lastly, there's also a cafe and restrooms there. We are now approaching our next stop, which is Orre Old Church. It was first mentioned in 1448, but the church was likely built around 1250 by monks from England. It has thick walls made of soapstone, indicating it was an important church. Because back then churches were typically built in wood, but if they were special, for example the churches in Stavanger, Bergen and Trondheim, they were built in stone. Very little is known of the original church. We don't really know much about it until the mid-19th century, when a massive renovation took place, giving the church its current appearance. What they did was that they added this wooden extension, you'll see it when we park. Additionally, they also removed the old arched windows and replaced them with rectangular ones, giving the church this very, very different appearance. When a new church was built for the village in 1950, Orre Old Church fell out of use. Today it's a museum, but there are some weddings and services that take place here. It's also located on someone's farm, which was quite awkward. You can see we parked literally on their property, and I didn't really know where we should park, so this was a very quick stop and we leave almost straight away. But this is Orre Old Church. It was closed when we visited, but if you come here in the summer months, it is open as a museum. Let's continue towards our next destination, and I'll be quiet for a little while again as we make our way further south. Hello once again, I hope you're enjoying the drive. Let me talk for a little while about Nærbø, which is the next village we're passing now. It's a little bit off to the left-hand side. This is a really interesting little village. Most of the towns we're passing through, they're very new. They were built up when the Jærbanen, or the train, was completed at the end of the 19th century. However, Nærbø is actually one of the oldest towns on the Jæren coast. So it was first settled around 6000 BC. Around 3000 BC, the land was covered by oak and pine forests, and when people started to farm the land, they cleared most of the forests. You can still see indications of the old forest, for example, coming up on our left-hand side. The area was important in the Viking Age. In 950, Eric the Red, founder of the Norse settlement on Greenland and father to Leif Erikson, was born near here. Another famous Viking was also born near Nærbø. His name is Olav Tryggvason. He was the king of Norway from 995 to 1000. He's famous for founding Trondheim, and he was also one of the first people to bring Christianity to Norway. He didn't succeed. He was killed for trying to Christianize Norwegians, but he started this trend of Christianizing Norway. In Nærbø, you can also find a museum, a science museum. It's all about the rural history of Jæren, and it also talks about how technology has changed the agricultural industry. It's a very interesting museum. We're getting closer to Obrestad Lighthouse, so I'll be back in a short while. We're getting closer to Obrestad Lighthouse, but just if you have a bit more time, to the right-hand side is the Gamla Pressgard, or the Old Vicarage. Today it is a contemporary art gallery and cultural history museum, but the vicarage itself is very, very old. All around the property as well, there are Stone Age remains and Iron Age remains, so it's a super interesting place to walk around. There is a permanent archaeological exhibition with ancient objects from the area, also in the Gamla Pressgard. But we're heading towards this lighthouse you can see straight ahead. It's called Obrestad Lighthouse. The Jæren coast is famous for shipwrecks, and legend says that the waves were so strong they were a great way to turn ships to scrap. If you needed to get rid of your ship, for example, just leave it on the beach in autumn. Throughout winter, the storms will take care of it, and when you return in spring, you'll have a pile of scrap ready to sell. Now, Obrestad Lighthouse was built towards the end of the 19th century. Although it has been rebuilt a few times, the present structure is from 1950. Today it operates as a museum, and you can also rent out the lighthouse keeper's home as an overnight stay. It is part of a very famous hiking trail called Kongeveien. This is an ancient road that the kings would have taken, hence the name. But today it's a very popular hiking path, and what makes it so great is that the coast is so flat, it is one of the easiest hiking paths you can do in Norway. Here is Obrestad Lighthouse directly in front of us. Okay, so that was Obrestad Lighthouse. Now we're going to make our way to the next stop, which is the Varhaug Old Cemetery, a really beautiful cemetery located further south on the coast. We will have to retrace our steps to get back towards the main road, and then we will head towards Varhaug. Enjoy the drive as we head towards the Varhaug Old Cemetery, or Varhaug Gamla Kyrkogård in Norwegian. Welcome to Varhaug village, which we're just driving around the outside of, but you will be able to see glimpses of it on our drive. So Varhaug is a very small village, and this is one of the ones that was founded in the late 19th century and expanded around the local train station. So the Jærbanen, or the Jæren line, it's a train that goes from Stavanger to Egersund, and it was built towards the end of the 19th century. When the station here opened, the village basically grew around it. Like many other villages, Varhaug's currently having a problem with overpopulation, and they're currently debating whether they should build apartment blocks in the village. It is likely that will happen because they just can't give up any of this precious agricultural land. Just past the sign towards the old cemetery, so let me tell you a little bit about it. So the Varhaug Old Cemetery is considered to be one of the most beautiful in Norway. The site of the present-day cemetery is where the historic church used to stand. There have been about 3 churches on this site, but sadly there is not a church there today. When the village was built up at the end of the 19th century, they tore down the church here and then built a church in the new village. The first church on the site was likely a stave church from around 1200. It was torn down in the mid-17th century to make way for a more modern church. You can just see the cemetery now in front of us, and then there's a chapel you'll see to the left-hand side. I will put some pictures up on the screen very soon. So the new church fell into disrepair. It was privately owned from 1725, I should say. A new church was built in 1828, but then it was demolished in 1905 after the village was established. The chapel is from 1952, and it does have some features of the old churches that used to stand on the site. For example, the bells are from 1791. Now, it's believed the cemetery was used as a pagan worshipping site, and some of the graves actually date back to the Middle Ages. If you do decide to walk around the cemetery, you will find a memorial for Russians who passed away in a shipwreck in 1842. That was the Varhaug Old Cemetery. Let's head to our next destination, which is the Kvassheim Lighthouse. That is also the last major destination on this drive before we head straight to Egersund. Enjoy the drive. I'll be back with you very soon. Okay, here we go. We're approaching Kvassheim Lighthouse, so let me tell you a little bit about this lighthouse. So between 1843 and 1851, there were 19 shipwrecks on the coast. In 1896, 3 ships sank in one day, just close to where this lighthouse was built. It was clear there was need for a lighthouse and a foghorn, so they were built in 1906. However, the light was weak and the foghorn did not work as intended. A new lighthouse and fog signal were built in 1912. So the lighthouse, it's built for a family, meaning people would live here all year round. There was separate properties for family members. Later on, as the staff grew, they built additional buildings around a central courtyard. Now, during World War II, the lighthouse was not lit, and German soldiers lived on the property. Fortifications and minefields were placed on the beach. The foghorn was automated in 1984, and a small lighthouse, which you see to the right-hand side now, replaced the old building in 1990. Today, the old lighthouse is used as a museum and a cafe, and much like Obrestad, you can actually rent out some rooms for the night. Here we are just parking in the car park with a beautiful view out to the North Sea, and we're visiting Kvassheim Lighthouse. Okay, so let's make our way towards Egersund. There are no major attractions on the way down, but there are a few things worth talking about, especially what we're going to be seeing very soon. So I will come back and talk about those small attractions, and you can use them as detours on your own road trip. Otherwise, what I love about this part of the drive is, again, the landscape just changes incredibly dramatically in a very short space of time. I'll be back very soon to talk about a little village called Brusand. So here we are now in Brusand. So Brusand is a tiny village. It has a population of about 430 people. It is known for its beach with sandy dunes, and it's also where the largest carrot packing plant is. However, I did not bring you here to talk about carrot packing, but we're here to talk about Hitler teeth. So you can just see them on the road now to the right-hand side, these sort of jagged rocks that are sticking up out of the grass. These are called Hitler teeth. So they were set up by Germans during World War II as anti-tank obstacles. They were placed here by prisoners of war or forced labour workers. The Germans were worried that the Allies were going to come into Norway via the sea, so they built this Hitler teeth along the coast to slow them down. But it's really interesting because the prisoners who had to place these rocks here, you can still see them to the right-hand side, what they did was they actually sabotaged the teeth by mixing in more sand than concrete, which made them much weaker. So if tanks were to come through, they would be able to pass through much easier. These used to be on the whole coast of Norway, but this spot here in Brusand is one of the very few places where you can see Hitler teeth today. You will see them along the whole village. They have decided to keep them. This is just a short break on the right-hand side. They do come back. And it's just a very interesting part of the southwest coast's World War II history. So do keep an eye out for them. Again, not as many as before, but here they are on the right. We're continuing further south towards Egersund, which is our final destination. We are now entering a small village called Ogna. This has a very old church here, so it is definitely worth mentioning. The population of Ogna today, I should say, is about 394 people. It has a white sanding beach, as do many towns in Jæren, it seems, but there is a very old church here. So the church itself is from the Middle Ages. It was probably built around 1250, which is the same age as the Orre Old Church we saw early on this drive. Sadly though, and it is definitely worth mentioning, the church was destroyed by a fire in 1991, which was very sad. It completely destroyed the church. It has been rebuilt, but it does not look like the original church. You can see the picture right here. And very little of the original church remains. But still, it's good to know that there was a historic church in this site. We will drive past it very soon. continuing south towards Egersund. On our right-hand side, it now is a very unique place called the Magma Geopark. It is an area with a very unique geology that has been recognized by UNESCO. Here, it is also the world's only sandy beach consisting of moonstone, if you're looking to do something a little bit different on your trip to Norway. The rock here is the same as the one found on the moon, called a northocite, and astronauts have even visited this area to prepare for taking rock samples on the moon. The Magma Geopark is huge, I should say. It's not concentrated to this one specific spot. It is all around southwestern Norway, but this is one of the main sites of this geopark. Welcome to Egersund. This is the end. We have made it. The end of the Jæren Scenic Road. Let me tell you a little bit about Egersund as we make our way into the town centre. Egersund is actually one of Norway's oldest harbours, and up until recently it was the most important fishing harbour in the country. It has since been overtaken by Obrestad. The name Egersund is actually very old. Sund means strait. During the Viking Age, it was a very important port and trading place. If you read the saga of Olav the Holy, who at the time was King Olav, you will see that he regularly anchored his ship in Egersund between pillaging across Europe. The town itself didn't emerge until the 17th century, when an urban settlement began to grow. There was growth throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, and the town centre has these beautifully characteristic timber houses. Egersund is also known for its ceramics. The first company started here in 1847, and there is a museum dedicated to this. You can see the Egersund church on the right-hand side. About the ceramics, today they are very hard to find, and if you do find one in a second-hand shop, they can go for quite a lot of money online. As I just mentioned here, they're very, very popular collector's item. There is actually a beautiful second-hand shop in the town centre, very close to the chocolate shop, which is another one of Egersund's best places to visit. But here we are, we're at the end. We're just parking the car outside the Grand Hotel, which is the historic hotel in town. And this is where our drive ends. You can follow the rest of the drive for this day. We ended up going to Dalen, which is a famous town in Telemark. So you can join that drive, or you can check out the other drives I have done around Norway. If you're looking for any information for planning your own visit, you can visit my website at ilovebergen.net. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the Jæren Scenic Road.